Have you ever dreamed of something so big that if it were to happen, it would change everything? Well, that's what happened to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. His dream was for racial equality and an end to discrimination against African Americans in the United States. But how did he make that dream a reality? Let's find out. In 1963, Martin Luther King, Jr. gave one of the most famous speeches of the 20th century. It was called, "I Have a Dream," and it outlined his vision for a better America where all people would be treated equally regardless of their skin color. But what inspired him to make that speech? What events led up to it, and why is it still relevant today? Well, let's take a closer look. Imagine this. You're marching with thousands of people from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. You're walking over 50 miles in hot summer weather and facing opposition from police who want to stop you. You're doing this for a cause, for justice, for equality. That is what the protesters were doing during the Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965, and one of them was a young man named Martin Luther King, Jr. He was a Baptist minister and activist who had been fighting for civil rights for years. But why was he doing this? Why was he putting himself on the line, facing danger and even violence for a cause that seemed so far out of reach? Well, it was because he believed in equality. He believed that all people should be treated equally, regardless of their race or gender. This belief was shaped by his upbringing and his experiences with racism and segregation in the South. As a child, he witnessed the harsh realities of Jim Crow laws and the discrimination that African Americans faced. He saw how they were denied basic rights, how they were treated as second-class citizens, and how they were often subjected to violence and intimidation. This experience left a deep impression on him, and it sparked his passion for justice. He went on to study theology in college, and he became a minister. But he didn't just want to preach about love and forgiveness. He wanted to fight for social change. He wanted to work towards a world where everyone could be treated equally and where there was no more racism or segregation. That's why he joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC, in 1957. It was an organization that aimed to improve the lives of African Americans through nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience. King rose quickly through the ranks, and he became one of the most prominent leaders of the civil rights movement. He organized boycotts, protests, and marches. He spoke out against injustice, and he challenged the status quo. But it wasn't easy. There were times when he faced backlash and even violence. There were times when he was arrested or when his home was bombed. But he didn't give up, because he had a dream of a better America, a dream of a world where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He dreamed of a day when all people would be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. He dreamed of a day when his 4 children would live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's what he talked about in his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. It was a speech that he gave on August 28, 1963, during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. It was a massive event that drew over 250,000 people to the nation's capital to demand equal rights and opportunities for African Americans. King was one of the main organizers of the march, and he was tasked with delivering a speech that would inspire and motivate the crowd. He spoke about his dream of a better America, a dream of a world where his children would live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He dreamed of a day when all people would be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. His words were powerful and moving. They resonated with the crowd, and they became one of the defining moments of the civil rights movement. The "I Have a Dream" speech is considered one of the greatest speeches of the 20th century, and King is remembered as one of the most important figures in the fight for civil rights. But how did he make his dream a reality? How did he change America forever? Well, it wasn't easy. It took years of hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. It took countless hours of organizing, protesting, and negotiating. It took facing down violence and hatred and even death threats. But King never gave up. He believed in his dream, and he refused to let it die. And eventually, his dream started to come true. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed. It outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin. It was a landmark piece of legislation that opened up opportunities for African Americans that had been denied to them for generations. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed. It outlawed discriminatory voting practices that had been used to keep African Americans from voting. It allowed African Americans to exercise their right to vote, which was a key step towards equality. These were major victories, and they were a testament to King's hard work and dedication. But he didn't rest on his laurels. He continued to fight for justice and equality until his death in 1968. So how did King change America? Well, he changed it in many ways. He challenged the status quo. He spoke out against injustice, and he demanded change. He organized protests, and he led the movement for civil rights. He inspired millions of people to fight for a better world. He also promoted nonviolent resistance. He believed that violence was not the answer, and he taught people how to resist oppression without resorting to violence. This was a radical idea at the time, but it proved to be effective. Another way that King changed America was through his message of hope. He never gave up hope, even when things were at their darkest. He believed that one day his dream would come true, and that inspired others to keep going. Finally, King changed America by putting his life on the line. He was willing to risk everything for his cause, and that showed incredible courage and conviction. Now, despite his tremendous contributions, King's legacy has been both praised and criticized. Some have praised him as a martyr who gave his life for the cause of civil rights. Others have criticized him for being too radical or for being ineffective. But whatever your opinion may be, there is no denying that King was an important figure in American history. He was a leader who fought for justice and equality. He was a man who had a dream, and he dared to share it with the world. And that brings us to the question, how can we honor King's legacy today? Well, we can start by remembering his dream. We can work towards making it a reality by fighting for equality and justice. We can also strive to be more like King. We can be more courageous, more compassionate, and more committed to making the world a better place. One of the best ways to honor King's memory is to get involved in our communities. We can volunteer our time to help those in need. We can donate to organizations that are working to make a difference. And we can also get involved in the political process. We can vote, we can run for office, and we can lobby our elected officials to support causes that we believe in. Another way to honor King's legacy is to educate ourselves and others about civil rights and social justice. We can learn about the struggles that African Americans faced and continue to face. We can challenge our own biases and stereotypes, and we can work to create a more inclusive and welcoming society. Finally, we can also honor King by simply being kind. King believed in the power of love and forgiveness. He believed that hate and violence were not the answer, and in a world that can often feel divisive and angry, we can all strive to be more kind and compassionate towards one another. So how will you honor King's legacy? How will you work to make his dream a reality? Well, that's up to you. But one thing is for sure, the world needs more people like Martin Luther King Jr. People who dare to dream big, people who fight for justice, and people who never give up hope. Martin Luther King Jr. His dream was a dream of equality and justice for all people. It was a dream that changed America and inspired the world. And while his dream has not yet been fully realized, we can all work towards making it a reality. So let us remember his dream, and let us work to make it come true. Thank you. Do you think King's dream has come true? Why or why not? What can we do to honor his legacy? Share your thoughts below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you haven't already, please subscribe for more videos like this. We'll see you next time.